The House of Trovi, the family to which Navier belonged, had produced multiple empresses over generations. The predecessor emperor, Osis III, had chosen Navier to be the future empress of the crown prince. Her marriage to Sovieshu was one of convenience, but fortunately they had maintained a good relationship since their youth. The nobles considered them an adorable pair of lovebirds, and they spent many days with their heads together, discussing the empire they would build together in the future. Navier was the perfect empress until today. Navier, Empress of the Eastern Empire, arrived and calmly accepted the divorce. Her announcement shocked everyone, prompting reactions of disbelief as many exclaimed that the situation was preposterous and urged her to calm down. Meanwhile, the mistress, Rashta, smirked and fell into Sovieshu's arms. Despite the uproar, Navier stood firm, agreeing to the divorce without any objections. Sovieshu expressed a conflicted mix of emotions. He admitted feeling remorseful, but also relieved. The atmosphere was tense, but then Navier made another bold declaration. She requested approval for her remarriage. The room fell into stunned silence. A remarriage? With whom? A knock at the door drew everyone's attention. The door opened to reveal a man with blonde hair, Emperor Heinrich. As he walked toward Navier, the surprise was evident on everyone's faces, including Sovieshu's. With a composed demeanor, Navier announced that Emperor Heinrich was the one she wished to remarry. The scene then shifts to a flashback from a few months earlier. The palace was abuzz with tension as servants were ordered to attend to the mistress, Rashta, a task they performed with visible displeasure. The day was unusually quiet as Navier's servants dressed her. Noticing their uncharacteristic silence, Navier inquired about their mood. The servants, visibly upset, revealed their frustration. They were angered by Sovieshu's decision to bring Rashta into the palace and the special treatment she received. They described Sovieshu's excessive concern for Rashta, implying there was more to their relationship. Despite their attempts to convince Navier that something was amiss, she chose to trust Sovieshu, even though her heart was troubled by doubt. During dinner, Navier confronted Sovieshu, asking if it was true that he had found a slave during his hunting trip and brought her back. Sovieshu deflected the question, asking where she had heard such a thing. Navier insisted that the source was not important, but Sovieshu, in a warning tone, told her to drop the subject, emphasizing their limited time together. Feeling dismissed, Navier remained silent for the rest of the meal. The next morning, Navier woke to the sound of her servants expressing their concerns about the situation. They asked if Sovieshu had said anything about the woman. Navier, feeling the weight of their worry, explained that Sovieshu claimed the girl was accidentally caught in one of his traps and that he brought her back to ensure she was nursed back to health. He had been displeased with Navier's inquiries. One servant, angered by Sovieshu's reaction, shared her frustration, having seen similar situations with her own father. Another servant expressed sympathy for Navier's predicament. Navier recounted her mother's advice, that she mustn't be hurt if Sovieshu took a mistress, as it was a common occurrence among royals. Her mother had told her that even if Sovieshu had mistresses, they were merely that, while Navier was the empress. Despite this advice, Navier couldn't shake the hollow feeling inside her. Her servant comforted her, acknowledging that it was natural for Navier to feel this way, given her long-standing betrothal and marriage to Sovieshu. Navier pondered whether Sovieshu would feel the same emptiness if she had another man by her side. She resolved that there was no reason she would ever have to see the girl in person, and that even if the slave became Sovieshu's mistress, she wouldn't be able to frequent the places of business or social circles. Navier concluded that she must not allow herself to become more impassioned, and that each of them would live their own lives. Most importantly, she reminded herself that she alone could be the Empress of the Eastern Empire. As Navier went outside to read under a tree, she overheard conversations about Sovieshu's unusual behavior, with people gossiping about how he personally brought meals to Rashta. Curious and somewhat disheartened, Navier walked away, only to encounter Lady Rashta, who greeted her warmly. Navier turned her head around and ignored Rashta. Undeterred, Rashta attempted to breach protocol, a shocking action for everyone present. The anxious servants tried to stop Rashta from approaching Navier, but she insisted on introducing herself. Navier responded with a curt greeting and walked away, hoping they would never cross paths again. Then Rashta reached out and grabbed a part of Navier's dress, causing it to tear. This sudden action shocked everyone present. One of the servants found her behavior insolent. Rashta quickly apologized, explaining that she had wanted to call out to Navier but didn't know how to address her. Another servant sternly corrected her, reminding her that Navier was the Empress of the Eastern Empire and that her behavior was inappropriate. Rashta insisted she knew who Navier was, which surprised the Empress. Smiling, Rashta reintroduced herself. Navier, barely concealing her irritation, acknowledged her, referring to her status as a slave. Her servant, sensing Navier's displeasure, clarified that Lady Rashta was not a slave. Navier, maintaining her composure, accepted this explanation, seeing no need to argue further. Rashta explained that she wanted to introduce herself properly since they would be seeing more of each other. She was unsure how to address Navier, but Navier instructed her to call her Her Majesty the Empress. As Navier turned to leave, Rashta attempted to grab her again, but her servant intervened. At that moment, Sovieshu appeared and overheard the servant referring to Rashta in a derogatory manner. He gave Navier an unhappy gaze and rushed to Rashta, covering her with his coat as she began to cry. Rashta peeked at Navier with a triumphant look, making the Empress uncomfortable. Navier decided to walk away with her servants, but Sovieshu halted them, pointing at her servant. He ordered Navier to leave the servant behind. Navier, maintaining her dignity, refused unless he provided a good, solid reason, emphasizing that her lady-in-waiting was the esteemed daughter of a high-ranking family. Sovieshu, continuing his domineering stance, reminded Navier that her lady-in-waiting was also a citizen of his empire. He then ordered his soldiers to lock her up for 3 days. Navier protested, insisting that the punishment was excessive. Sovieshu disagreed, pointing out that Rashta was injured and under his care, yet Navier's lady-in-waiting had insulted her by calling her a filthy wench. He questioned how Navier could still consider his punishment excessive. Trembling with fear, the servant reluctantly agreed that the punishment was not excessive. Sovieshu then left with Rashta, patting her head to comfort her, leaving Navier seething with anger. 3 days later, Navier went to the tower to retrieve her servant. She had her bathed in her room and prepared her favorite desserts to comfort her. Just as they were settling, a messenger arrived, summoning Navier to see His Majesty. Though unexpected, Navier accepted the summons. When Navier met with Sovieshu, he questioned the necessity of personally escorting her servant and demanded that she dismiss her. Navier, unhappy with his tone, argued that it was unjust to throw out a servant punished for being devoted to her, especially since her actions were well within the bounds of common sense. Sovieshu pressed her again, asking if she insisted on keeping the servant by her side. Navier firmly reinforced that who she appointed as her lady-in-waiting was her prerogative. Growing tired of the argument, Sovieshu expressed his frustration, asking why Navier couldn't obediently do as he said for once. Navier's blood boiled at his words. She retorted that as the Empress, she was not someone to be at his beck and command. In response, Sovieshu cruelly remarked that this was why he couldn't help but compare her to Rashta. He then dismissed Navier, saying he was tired of arguing with her. After Navier left, Sovieshu rang the bell for water. Unsurprisingly, Rashta appeared. He was pleased to see her as his attendant and showed his affection by petting her. Rashta spotted a pumpkin pie and expressed her excitement. Sovieshu couldn't help but compare her reaction to Navier's, noting how he gave Navier expensive jewels, yet her reaction was so frigid, while it took so little to bring joy to Rashta. As he thought this, he wiped the pie from her lips. Rashta, continuing their conversation, suggested that Navier probably didn't appreciate her gifts because she had grown up without knowing a day of hardship. She implied that Navier took her gifts of precious gems for granted. Realizing she might have overstepped, Rashta quickly added that she didn't mean to speak ill of Navier, but that it was common for anyone raised with plenty to act that way. Soviet-Shu looked at Rashta with admiration and gently touched her hair. Riding on the favorable atmosphere, Rashta inquired about becoming his mistress. Soviet-Shu, however, wanted to take things slow and assured her that he had a plan in mind. On a bright, shiny morning, news arrived that His Majesty had decided to appoint Rashta as his mistress. Navier calmly acknowledged the news, though her servant was outraged, pointing out that while Navier had been busy preparing for the New Year's ceremony, Soviet-Shu had been preparing to take Rashta as his mistress. Navier had been steeling herself for this moment, but was surprised at how quickly it had come. She maintained her composure and inquired about the timing of the appointment. Her servant sighed and mentioned that, according to rumors, it would happen as soon as possible, before the New Year's ceremony. Meanwhile, in the reading room, Rashta and one of Soviet-Shu's servants were dealing with the document that would make her officially Soviet-Shu's mistress. The servant explained the process. The Prime Minister would hand His Majesty the notarized document. Soviet-Shu would sign it first, and then Rashta would sign below him. However, Rashta struggled with writing her name, revealing that she did not know how to write. The servant reassured her that it was nothing to be ashamed of and offered to teach her how to write her name. He also mentioned that the Empress might send her a welcome gift, as was customary, to show recognition and acceptance of the mistress into the royal household. This made Rashta happy, and she wondered if Navier would give her a gift. Navier, however, decided not to give Rashta a gift, much to the relief of her servants. She explained her reasoning. There were 3 main reasons for an empress to send a mistress a gift: if they were friends, if the mistress was a high-ranking noble, or if the mistress was of the same bloodline as the empress. Rashta did not meet any of these criteria, so Navier saw no reason to go out of her way to send her a gift. The servants then brought up a rumor about the prince from the Western Kingdom attending the New Year's ceremony. They heard that he was incredibly handsome, and that one look into his eyes could captivate any woman. However, he was also known to be stubborn and was rumored to be involved with many women, yet had fathered no children. The servants speculated about the truth of these rumors and wondered if he was really coming. Navier, shocked by their curiosity, confirmed that although she couldn't verify the rumors, the prince would indeed be attending the ceremony. Just then, a servant entered, announcing that Grand Duke Rylan Roth of Winchester had sent his regards along with a gift of the finest silks in all the Eastern Empire. Navier noted that the Grand Duke was at it again, and instructed the servant to convey her gratitude, but to tell him that his regards were enough. The Grand Duke, an extended family member of Soviet-Shu, had no interest in the throne, but had a strong thirst for power. He regularly sent bribes in hopes of requesting special favors in return. As Navier was about to enjoy a sip of tea, the servant announced that Lady Rashta wanted to see her. Despite her reluctance, Navier granted the request. Rashta greeted her with a casual manner, expressing how nice it was to see her again. Navier, hiding her emotions as she had become accustomed to in unpleasant situations, congratulated Rashta on becoming a mistress. Rashta happily thanked her and said she had come to see her sister, the Empress. This startled Navier, and a servant spilled tea in surprise. Navier, shocked, questioned, "What? Sister?" Rashta continued, explaining that they were now sisters because they shared the same husband. Disgusted, Navier responded, "What?" Undeterred, Rashta asked if she could call Navier Big Sister from now on. Navier, maintaining a calm demeanor, questioned Rashta without expression. She made it clear that sharing the same husband did not make them sisters, and firmly rejected the notion of being called Big Sister. Rashta, taken aback by Navier's response, began to cry, asking if Navier disliked her. Navier explained that her feelings were irrelevant and that Rashta's new status as a mistress did not alter their relationship. Feeling the frosty glares of everyone around her, Rashta retreated and confided in a servant, claiming that Navier hated her. The servant, realizing Rashta had gone to see Her Majesty, was surprised and struggled to explain why that was inappropriate. As Rashta recounted her direct conversation with Navier, the servant was shocked by her forwardness. Later, as Navier was taking a walk in the garden, she noticed a feather floating down and caught it. She looked up to see a beautiful bird. As she approached, the bird flew down to her hand, with a note attached to its feet. Curiously, she opened the note, which read, "I am a guest from abroad who will soon arrive at the New Year's ceremony, and I write this note while drunk." Navier smiled at the playful message. Her servants, noticing her interest, suggested she write back. Amused, Navier penned a reply with a touch of humor. "Your bird has found its way to me. If it is able to find its way back, I shall be relieved, for it means it must be cleverer than its inarticulate drunk master." She tied the note back to the bird and released it. The bird flew back to a man who read the note and smiled, thinking to himself that if he wanted to see Navier again, he would have to cleverly find his way back to her. He mused, calling her "my queen" in his thoughts, intrigued by her wit and grace. Navier wondered if the bird would return. She hoped it would come back, as long as it didn't lose its way. While chatting with her servants about the bird, Navier opened her bedroom door to find Sovieshu waiting for her inside. He had requested a servant for Rashta, but finding a noble willing to be a lady-in-waiting proved difficult. Sovieshu blamed Navier for not participating in the search herself, and insisted she lead the effort to find a lady-in-waiting for Rashta. Reluctantly, Navier agreed to his request, given his insistence. Her servants were concerned for her. The fact that Rashta was not from a noble family made the search even more challenging, as ladies-in-waiting were typically from nobles of the same rank, or at most a rung or two lower. Navier's only option was to send invitations to all the noblewomen and their daughters for a tea party. On the day of the tea party, Navier made her intentions clear. She needed their help. Initially, the noblewomen were surprised but willing to assist. However, when Navier revealed that she needed a lady-in-waiting to attend to a soon-to-be mistress, their expressions turned to disgust. One noblewoman pointed out that Rashta's status as a runaway slave had been the subject of much gossip. Others expressed concerns that serving a slave would affect their own status. Navier had expected this outcome. Exhausted from the day's efforts, she lay in bed when suddenly the bird returned with a letter tied to its leg. The note read, "I'd like to think I'm a bit more intelligent than a bird. I've worked up from my drunken stupor now." Delighted, Navier replied, "It seems as if you haven't awoken completely. What is the bird's name?" She tied the message to the bird's leg and gave it a kiss for good luck. And just as she released it, Sovieshu came to see her and inquired about the search for his mistress's lady-in-waiting. Navier informed him that no one wanted to take on the role. He questioned why and accused Navier of spreading rumors about Rashta being a runaway slave. She looked at him in disbelief. Sovieshu confronted Navier, accusing her of benefiting from the rumors about Rashta and labeling her as a love rival. The words "love rival" broke Navier's heart. She retorted that Sovieshu was not her love, so Rashta could not be her rival. She expressed her exhaustion over the situation and asked not to be dragged into it anymore before leaving the room. Navier went outside and cried. Suddenly the bird returned with another note tied to its leg. The note read, "Is such a thing needed? You may name it if you'd like." Gazing at the bird, Navier felt it sensing her sorrow. She confided in the bird, calling the place her secret crying spot. The bird gently patted her face, and in return, she gave it a kiss and named it Queen for its kindness and intellect. Hugging the bird before letting it go, she felt a brief moment of solace. The bird then landed in a forest and transformed into a man, who pondered the irony of being named Queen. Another blue bird transformed into a man and warned him to remember his position as an imperial highness. In the West Palace, Rashta sat on a chair belonging to Navier. She apologized and expressed her desire to become friends. Navier, with a calm yet pointed demeanor, suggested Rashta become friends with the next mistress that Sovieshu would take in after her. Rashta, puzzled, asked about the next mistress, to which Navier confirmed that there would indeed be another after her. That night, Sovieshu stormed into Navier's room, questioning why she had changed so much. She was confused and listened as he recounted Rashta's complaints about their conversation. Navier reminded him that his father had also taken multiple mistresses. He accused her of saying horrible things to Rashta without any pity. He slammed the door and left her in anger. Meanwhile, Rashta was delighted to hear from a servant that Sovieshu had yelled at Navier angrily. To her immense joy, Sovieshu sent Rashta a chair as a gift, further solidifying her happiness. At night, Queen the bird returned to Navier. It flew past her and landed directly on her bed. She gently patted it before opening the letter attached to its leg. The note read, "As you wish, the bird's name shall be Queen, but you should bear in mind that it's male." Amused, Navier held the bird up and asked if he was indeed a male bird. In an early morning, Navier and Sovieshu appeared together to greet guests who came to join the New Year ceremony. Prince Heinrich, first in line to the throne of the Western Kingdom and the subject of many rumors, arrived in an elegant carriage. Stories of his great cruelty and extraordinary beauty surrounded him. As he approached, Navier was struck by his appearance. Prince Heinrich knelt and kissed her hand, taking Navier by surprise with his graceful gesture. Later that night, the bird returned to Navier, bringing another message. She was happy to see Queen and read the note, which said, "I've arrived at the imperial palace. Can you guess who I am?" Puzzled and curious, Navier replied, "I'm not sure who you are. Do you know who I am?" On a heavy, rainy night, Queen returned once more. As Navier dried the wet bird, she opened and read the note. "The one who figures out who the other is first wins." Irritated that the bird's master had sent it out in such weather, Navier replied, "And what will be the prize?" The bird seemed eager to deliver the new message, but Navier insisted it stay the night with her until the rain stopped. She kept the bird on her bed and fell into a deep sleep. Queen sneaked out. When Navier woke, it had already left. However, it soon reappeared with a new message. "Queen shall be the prize." Next morning, Navier was in the middle of work when a servant entered and announced that Prince Heinrich wished to see her. She went to meet him, and as he approached, he made a gesture as if to kiss her hand, but then commented that he hoped he was not interrupting her. Navier pulled her hand back and asked why he wanted to see her. Prince Heinrich requested a tour of the palace. As Navier was about to find a servant to give him the tour, Heinrich expressed that he wished for her to show him around personally. Navier felt a twinge of suspicion as he called her Queen, wondering if he could be the mysterious bird's master. Heinrich asked again if she would personally guide him, and Navier agreed, leading the way. As they walked, Navier asked if he had been to the South Palace. His reply surprised her. He had already explored the entire South Palace. Just as she was processing this, Rashta ran up to them, asking if she could join the tour. She introduced herself to Prince Heinrich, who bowed politely. Rashta, stunned by his appearance, inquired who he was. Navier introduced him as Prince Heinrich and mentioned that she was showing him around the palace. Prince Heinrich politely declined Rashta's request to join them, but she insisted. To her surprise, Heinrich cut her off and continued the tour with Navier, leaving Rashta behind. Navier was taken aback by his quick and determined rejection of Rashta. Sensing her surprise, Heinrich teased, asking if she found him handsome, and commented on how strange it was that most people would have shown interest in him by now. As he continued to ask Navier more questions, she finally admitted that he was indeed handsome. Heinrich then revealed that he was just trying to lighten the mood. He boldly asked if Rashta was the mistress with whom the emperor was committing adultery. Navier was unprepared for such a straightforward question, but before she could respond, Heinrich remarked on how absurd it was for the emperor to stray when he had someone like Navier by his side. His candidness finally made Navier laugh. Later, as Navier was getting ready for the New Year's ceremony, she looked at all the notes and noticed Queen outside with its back turned, seemingly shy to see her changing. Navier had Queen deliver a note before the banquet, hoping to meet Queen's master. At the banquet, Navier and Sovieshu made their entrance together. As she scanned the room, she spotted Rashta, the mistress, also present at the ceremony. The sight of Rashta there fueled Navier's resolve to maintain her grace and poise, despite the ongoing turmoil in her life. Navier thought to herself that while mistresses weren't typically allowed to attend the celebration Only those who were deemed qualified could, and Rashta did not fit that criteria. Sovieshu then released Navier's hand and rushed to his mistress. Feeling a mix of emotions, Navier turned and walked away, only to be greeted by the Duchess of Tuania. As they exchanged pleasantries, the Duchess noticed Prince Heinrich, which made Navier wonder who he might have an affair with, given the rumors surrounding him. As whispers about Prince Heinrich circulated, Navier stood aside for a drink. She paused when she saw Prince Heinrich's reflection in her glass, waving at her. She quickly turned her head away, avoiding his gaze. Navier overheard people gossiping about her. A lady approached and asked if she had sent Rashta a gift, catching Navier off guard. The lady apologized, explaining that rumors had been spreading about Rashta receiving a gift from Navier. Denying the claim, Navier left the ladies laughing awkwardly. The dance music began, and Navier noticed Sovieshu and Rashta, assuming he would have the first dance with her. Feeling sidelined, Navier stood alone until Prince Heinrich approached with a rose in hand, inviting her to dance. Surprised, she hesitated, but eventually accepted his invitation. As they entered the dance floor, Navier glanced at Sovieshu. While dancing, Heinrich acknowledged the spread of silly rumors and how quickly they could take root. Navier, grateful for his understanding, mentioned the rumor about her sending Rashta gifts and thanked him, adding that she wouldn't believe the rumors about him being a Casanova either. Prince Heinrich, taken aback by her straightforwardness, laughed. They continued to joke about the rumors surrounding them until the first dance ended. Rashta then approached and asked Prince Heinrich to dance with her, leading to a switch in partners. As Navier danced with Sovieshu, memories of their childhood together flooded her mind, the times he cared for her when she was injured and the moments they shared. Sovieshu's voice snapped her back to reality as he warned her that Prince Heinrich was not a suitable lover. Shocked by his words, Navier tried to respond, but Sovieshu quickly left her side to rush back to Rashta, who was standing alone crying. She cried after Prince Heinrich declined to dance with her. Observing how Navier was being left out, the guests began to gossip. Feeling overwhelmed, she decided to leave the ceremony. As she walked through the hallway, she sensed someone following her. Turning around, she saw Prince Heinrich. Nervously, he explained that he wanted to ensure she didn't get lost in the vast palace. He then asked her if she was okay. Navier assured him that she was fine and thanked him for his company before retreating to her room. Once inside, Navier's emotions overwhelmed her. Suddenly, she heard a familiar chirping outside her window. It was Queen. She hugged the bird tightly, finding some comfort. Shortly after, a servant entered with troubling news. Viscountess Verdi had declared she could no longer serve as Navier's lady-in-waiting, despite having borrowed money from Navier recently. This sudden change puzzled Navier. On the second day of the New Year's ceremony, Rashta appeared in a stunning blue silk dress. Navier's servants were outraged, recognizing the fabric as a bribe Navier had turned down. To add to the shock, Viscountess Verdi stood beside Rashta. Princess Circe of the Southern Empire nearby expressed her disdain for the institution of the mistress, calling it a polite term for a woman with whom a husband cheats. Turning to Navier, she mentioned that Prince Heinrich seemed to be anonymously exchanging letters with someone. Navier's servants, intrigued, speculated that Prince Heinrich might be the one sending letters via Queen. Concerned about potential malicious rumors, Navier decided it was safer to remain anonymous friends with her pen pal. Meanwhile, Rashta and her servants discussed Prince Heinrich's announcement that he was searching for his secret pen pal. They speculated that Rashta might be the mysterious correspondent, which delighted her, although she denied it. Later that day, Viscountess Verdi thanked Rashta for inviting her to visit her salon. Noticing her discomfort, Rashta offered to let her return to Navier, but Verdi declined. She confided in Rashta that she suspected the Empress was the anonymous pen pal, and that Navier would never reveal herself. When Rashta inquired about the letter's content, the servant confirmed she knew them. An evil plan began to form in Rashta's mind. On the third day of the New Year's ceremony, Navier overheard people talking about Prince Heinrich's partner, for the day being the one who exchanged letters with him. She glanced toward Prince Heinrich and saw a girl approaching him, introducing herself as Cherini, claiming to be his anonymous pen pal. Prince Heinrich, with a mix of pressure and genuine curiosity, questioned Cherini about her claim. He emphasized the importance of his pen pal to him and expressed that he would be delighted if she were indeed his secret correspondent. Taking a step closer, he warned that if she was lying, he didn't know how he might react in his disappointment. Cherini, feeling the weight of his words, remembered Rashta's assurance that she would be okay.